So you will have heard me talk about this before, but basically there is the theory of samsara and the theory of nirvana. Now, the theory of samsara explains the truth of suffering, what causes us to experience suffering in the mundane world. And the theory of nirvana primarily talks about transcendence from this suffering. That is, what are the causes of happiness and well-being? But by that, I don't mean temporary happiness and well-being. Primarily, that refers to a sense of well-being that is lasting and permanent. It's something we call nirvana. Now, in general, the theory of samsara is taught first. This is the first of the Four Noble Truths that states there is suffering. And the reason why this is taught first is until someone develops renunciation, that is the wish to abandon or transcend suffering in the mundane world, then one has no means to travel along the path to awakening. But sometimes the theory of nirvana is taught first. Likewise, sometimes the ultimate truth is taught first. For example, in many of the treaties, like Gampopa's Ornament of Liberation, then it starts off by teaching about the ultimate. But it only does so in a very brief fashion. And then it goes on to talk about provisional reality and the stages to progress along the path and overcome suffering. Also, sometimes the theory of nirvana is taught first. And really this is for inspirational purposes. Sometimes the paths and levels are laid out so that someone can give rise to hope in emancipation and transcendence. And for the most part, on this channel, then I have focused on the causes of suffering. I've focused on the mistakes we make, the things that basically cause us to experience unpleasant things. Fundamentally, what this is our strong negative emotions. And the point is, as long as we have these strong negative emotions, then basically we're going to have a lot of trouble. We're going to suffer for that. And so, of course, it's necessary to speak about the dangers of giving rise to anger and greed. It's important to speak about the consequences and also give real-life examples of how this is the case. Because someone needs confidence. Confidence that essentially one needs to abandon one's negativities. These days, many people are becoming despondent and feel like things are hopeless. And at times like these, then it's often good to talk about transcendence. We say transcendence, enlightenment, awakening, or liberation. They're all the same thing, really. It's about going beyond mundane suffering. And that doesn't just mean going beyond pain. ultimately, pain does not equate to suffering. It's our inability to accept things that causes us to suffer. So again, these days, people are getting a bit desperate. And they feel like everything's hopeless. And because of this, then many people are developing a nihilistic way of thinking. And then, so today, I thought it might be good to talk a little bit about what we call transcendence and liberation. Provisionally, we think of samsara as being this world, the mundane world. The world that's filled with complications, where you have to go to work and you come into conflict with others. And we see nirvana to be some sort of heavenly realm. A place where the ground is pristine, clean and smooth. Where there is always the sound of birdsong. Clean water, cool air, never too hot, never too cold. But these are provisional statements. You can say samsara and nirvana, but that's the same as saying the provisional and the ultimate. It's also the same as saying method and wisdom. They are not different things. And nirvana is not some place other than this. In fact, nirvana has got nothing to do with our sense perceptions. One can be here in the mundane world and experience happiness, well-being, and transcendence, or one can be here and experience pain and suffering. And it all has to do with one's outlook. And sure, from time to time, we experience spiritual well-being and happiness. From time to time, we experience rapture. The problem is, for us, it never seems to last. As I've said before, many times, often when people participate in their first yoga retreat or do their first silent meditation retreat, they will have what appear to be profound experiences. And so many people jump to the conclusion that they've become awakened. The truth is that all ordinary beings, from time to time, have experiences of this ultimate truth. In Mahayana Buddhism, that's what we call non-referential compassion. The problem is, ordinary beings don't recognize that. And so what we do is we objectivize the experience. Now, it is 100% certain that through your practice, you can generate valid experiences of emptiness, bliss, peace, well-being, and the ultimate truth. When these experiences arise, then the primary obstacle of this special well-being is that we grasp or cling to it. I've said this before on many occasions, but basically, all spiritual paths are about reducing clinging. And it is only to the extent to which one removes one's clinging that one is able to experience this phenomena called awakening. And very simple things can cause us to experience a reduction in our clinging. For example, if you've ever done meditation on the breath, and quite possibly the first time you've ever done that meditation, then along with that has come some sense of peace and tranquility. This sense of peace and openness or tranquility is a sign that there has been a temporary reduction in your clinging or grasping. So what you need to do is you need to identify that experience. And I know many of you will know what I'm talking about. This kind of experience of openness, right? You have no sensations of suffering, and there is only well-being. The mistake is when you have that brief experience to think to yourself that you've come to the end of the journey. Really, this experience should act as inspiration for your practice. Because having experienced this fleeting, pleasurable, open awareness, by extrapolation, you can see potentially what can be achieved if you make significant progress on your journey. If you reduce your clinging a slight amount, then you will have a slight experience of well-being, a spiritual well-being associated with nirvana, right? For example, if you hear some bad news and it really causes you to worry, you think, for example, your son has gone missing, and you think of all the worst things that could possibly happen. And this anxiety and the fear eats away at all your well-being, completely destroys your peace of mind. And then suddenly you realize that they're fine. Everything's fine, there was nothing wrong. At that moment, what you do is you let go totally of that fear and anxiety, and you'll experience this elation, this huge relief from your trauma. And this is the consequence of letting go, removing clinging. So imagine what it's like for someone who has no clinging, clings neither to self nor external phenomena, clings neither to ideology nor concepts, has no notion of identity. For that individual, there is no suffering and only well-being. And this is what we try to achieve on the spiritual path. In Buddhism, it's taught that the cause for achieving awakening or liberation is something called the Eightfold Noble Path. And this path is a progression. But the first step is what is called right view. Because it is on the basis of an unmistaken view, a correct view, that then one gains the ability to apply oneself to that which is essential to achieving liberation. And there's no time to go into any detail on the Eightfold Noble Path, but just regarding view, I think it would be helpful to mention a few important points. First, with right view, naturally comes the belief in something called karma, cause and effect. And that means that there are consequences for one's actions. And by applying oneself to essentially non-virtuous acts, then in the future one will experience unhappiness, the unpleasant. Likewise, the law of karma states that if one applies oneself to virtue, then the consequences of that will be experiences of happiness and well-being. Likewise, in order to have a correct belief in karma, cause and effect, then one also needs to believe in past and future lives. And I know that this is a very difficult point for most Westerners. But why a belief in past and future lives is so critical to this path is because without the continuation of consciousness beyond this lifetime, then essentially a belief in karma would be mistaken. Because as we can see, there are those who dedicate themselves to heinous and nefarious acts and at the same time experience great luxury and well-being in their lifetimes. And also, there are those who apply themselves only to virtue, but seem to be plagued with unhappiness and suffering. There's another important thing, is that with a belief in past and future lives and karma, cause and effect, also comes profound acceptance for whatever arises. And this acceptance is absolutely fundamental and key to removing your clinging. I once asked my teacher, Akon Rinpoche, what it meant to be a bodhisattva. And he said quite simply 3 things. Accept everything. Soft mind. Warm heart. And this is it. This is the very foundation of all of the Buddha's teachings. Because the individual who is able to accept whatever arises no longer experiences suffering. The mind that is malleable can adapt to whatever circumstances arise, will not be fixated or polarized into strong beliefs of good and bad. And fundamentally, the one who possesses true compassion, along with that, loses all of their self-concern. And basically, without self-concern, there is no cause to experience suffering. If you can do these 3 things, then what you will experience will be a profound sense of tranquility, an ease and openness that cannot be shaken or removed. This peace and happiness is accompanied with a profound feeling of bliss. And there is one single instruction to help you achieve this state beyond suffering in the mundane world. And that is simply let go. Well, I've got to catch my ferry, so I better make my way back to the truck. I hope something I have said will be of some assistance to you, will help you to overcome the despair that we're all experiencing in these troubled times. I hope that something I have said will inspire you to dedicate yourself to your practice, because I have a firm belief that if you do sincerely apply yourself to your meditation, then you will create the causes for your own future happiness and well-being, and eventually create the causes for transcendence from suffering. So good luck with your practice, and see you next time.